I'm Evan, 30, a night shift barista, who double knots his shoes and still forgets to call his mother back, and at 213 a.m. on a Tuesday I should have died on Old Fairview Bridge if you stay. I'll show you the one decision that kept me breathing. And the person I didn't expect to save. The rain turned the highway into dark glass. The wipers kept time like a nervous drummer. I was driving home in the dented shop Corolla, thinking about nothing important, when the first warning arrived. A yellow sign bridge ices before road hissed past. The second was my phone lighting my thigh. A text from my sister, "Maya, you up?" She never texts after midnight unless something's wrong. But before I could answer, a deer stepped out of the rain like the ghost of a bad choice. I tapped the brakes the way the instructor taught. But the back end floated for a second. The world was two things: silence and spin. I let the wheel glide and felt the tires bite. The deer vanished. I laughed, one hard stupid laugh. The body makes when it meets the door and doesn't have to go through. I texted Maya driving. "Call you in 10. She shot back instantly, "Don't cross the bridge." I'm serious. Up ahead, orange barricades flickered. One lane was coned. The storm had clawed part of the guardrail. The river below was muscle. For a second I almost obeyed her. Simply because family commands sometimes sound like prayers. The pickup ahead went first. I followed, slow, and halfway over the world changed shape. The surface under my tires turned to glass. The car drifted toward the broken rail. I corrected, too much, not enough. The left wheel dropped into a seam. The steering wheel kicked my palms and the Corolla yawed. And I understood how small a person is inside a machine that has decided to teach a physics lesson. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years, my father. Patient, parking lot teacher voice said, "Look where you want to go, kid," and my hands obeyed. I forced my eyes off the gap and onto the white seam that meant home. The tires found grip the way a story finds its subject. I cleared the seam. A box truck tore past in the oncoming lane and drenched me in a sheet of water. 2 feet more, 2 seconds longer. And I would have been a headline people think about for a minute on lunch. On the far side I pulled into the turnout and let the engine idle. Adrenaline wrote its name on my blood. I called Maya. She picked up before the first ring finished. "Are you across, Evan? Say something." I said the dumbest thing, "Where did you come from?" She thought I meant the text. "Night shift insomnia," she said. And I dreamed about Dad's old Civic on that bridge. It slid and then she stopped. I woke up and texted you. I wanted to say you saved me, but naming a miracle felt like tempting fate. I looped off the highway to the public boat launch, parked under the bridge rib, and listened to rain drum the roof. The river was winter angry, throwing branches at the pylons. 2 sets of flashers glowed downstream. Dad's voice hung around like aftershave in his old jacket. "Look where you want to go." He's been gone 5 years, heart that loved too hard for the body it got. But the advice kept arriving in present tense. I counted the boring heroes that had just worked tires, belt, brakes, cones. Some underpaid city worker in neon. Counting calmed my hands. When I pulled back onto the road, the turn signal clicked too fast. Dead bulb. Normally I'd ignore it. Instead I pulled into the gas station across from the bait shop. Bought a bulb and a cheap wrench, and worked under the awning while rain hammered the tin roof. A man in a red hoodie. Smoked with his back to the wall, jittery in a way that wasn't weather. He watched me fumble the headlight assembly. "Lefty-loosey," he said, and we both laughed. Because the world had been too loud for jokes and suddenly wasn't. He popped the casing free and helped swap the bulb. "Bad night?" I asked. He looked at the river. "Was going to be. Changed my mind." He nodded at my car. I told him about the hydroplane and my sister's text. And my father's voice showing up like a ghost that didn't need a sheet. He crushed the cigarette after one drag like he might change that too. My mom used to say, if you can count 10 things that helped, you should be number 11 for someone else. He pointed at the bridge. You going back that way? I said no. He shouldered his backpack like a choice. Good, he said. Roads closed now. Faint through the rain, a siren yawned. I thanked him and asked if he needed a ride. He shook his head and walked toward the bus stop. On Mill Road the storm softened. The emergency channel said a truck had skidded on Old Fairview right after I'd crossed. A second car hit the brake. Then a third crews were closing both ends. I pulled over and threw up because the body has its own language for time delay. When I finally made it home, the hallway smelled like clean laundry. I texted Maya a photo of my goofy alive face. She sent keys, hearts, the sleeping moon. I noticed blue paint on the toe of my shoe headlight. Casing exactly the color my dad used to label tool drawers. I didn't cry, I just felt my chest loosen like a window you forgot could open. In the morning I went back to the station with breakfast sandwiches to thank the red hoodie. But the clerk said no one had been around since midnight. At the bus stop a receipt stuck to the bench said 205 A.M. and a fare to the detox clinic. I don't know if he made it, or if he had to decide again and again until the deciding stuck. But I know the world wasn't done with either of us. In daylight I visited the bridge. A worker replaced a cone and nodded. I told him thank you for the plastic things that matter. He laughed and said thank the lady who orders them. I called Public Works and left a message for a woman named Dawn. You don't know me. But I didn't die, partly because of you. That night at the cafe a man with rain in his hair snapped because his latte wasn't hot enough. I remade it and asked if he'd had a rough night. He said his mother was in ICU and the drink was for a nurse who'd been kind, and when he left, he said, I'll come back when I can breathe. On my break I texted Maya still here. She replied with a photo of Dad fixing a lamp, blue tape on his thumb. Captioned, look where you want to go. I saved it as my lock screen. A day after not dying looks like any day. Except everything has a gentle outline, like a cartoon you could color when you're ready. The bridge will reopen. The trucker will tell the story about black ice. The man in the red hoodie will sit on a plastic chair with his backpack between his feet and decide 10 more times to keep living until the choosing becomes muscle memory. And me, I'll drive home slow with the heater on and my high beams off. Because I remember how to look where I want to go. And I'll keep counting the ordinary heroes: bolts, cones, bulbs, strangers, sisters, and then add myself, not because I'm brave in any cinematic way, but because I made one small decision at the right time and then another. People think near death gives you wisdom. Mostly it gives you errands: buy a bulb, leave a message, say I love you before you're too tired. When the storm left, the sky over the river looked rubbed clean. And the road glittered with the kind of quiet that only happens after noise. I rolled down the window and let the cold on my hands feel like proof. I said out loud to the empty car, because some things you should hear yourself say, I'm still here. And then I drove where I meant to go. When the car started to slide, I remembered a dumb detail: a coffee coin rolled in the cup holder and rang, a tiny bell for attention. The traction light flashed. Every driver ed diagram paraded through my head. Dad once put 4 plastic plates under the tires in the empty school lot and made me practice losing and finding the car while he whistled around a popsicle. Panic is a terrible driver, he said. And I laughed on purpose so my body would learn to loosen when the wheels did. That memory felt like a hand on the wheel. At the boat launch I let the heater fog the windshield and counted 10 good, boring things. A properly inflated spare, the seat belt. Click, that is almost a prayer. The last oil change I didn't postpone, the worker in neon, who dragged cones until his socks were wet. The engineer who decided there should be a seam exactly where my tire could find it, the stranger who honked at the right second, my sister's dream. That was only a story until it wasn't, the teacher voice that visited on time, and the oldest one breath that kept happening. After number 10 I felt human. At the station, the red hoodie said. He'd been about to keep walking until he disappeared into the river. He didn't say why. I told him I'd nearly done the dumb mirror of that. What changed my mind? A sentence from a dead man and a text from a live girl. He held the new bulb to the light. Then the world knows how to speak your language, he said. He pocketed the old bulb like a talisman and gave me the cheap wrench. In case you need to be number 11 again. By afternoon, when I called Public Works, a woman named Dawn answered with a warm, tired voice. Cones, forms, coffee, a string of people who thought none of it mattered until it did. I told her it mattered. She went quiet in the way ordinary workers do when their job gets promoted to hero for a minute. I'll tell the crew, she said. They pretend they don't care, but they care. That night I wiped the milk wand slowly and realized near death doesn't change the world, it changes the volume. I could hear the quiet parts again and set an alarm to call Mom, texted Maya first for once. Put the cheap wrench in the glove box. When I finally slept, I dreamed of the bridge in daylight and Dad pointing at the white seam there. That's your line. Keep your eyes there and your heart will teach your hands.